Ready, aim, fire.
Welcome to Live with Sensei. I'm your host, Jay Haynes, for the Film Sensei YouTube channel. In the 17th episode of Season 2, I am delighted to be hosting an amazing musician, Nathan Larsen. Welcome, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It is a pleasure. While people are still trickling in as they get the notifications of the live stream, let me just say that I would like to give a few shout outs. So if you are already in the room and you'd like to be recognized today, please leave a comment in the chat room. And I would be delighted to give you that shout out. Also, if you have any questions, please fire away. Now is your chance. I do want to post Nathan's music channel in the chat room. Let me do that right now. And pow, there it is. And Nathan is a musician. He is a consultant. He teaches. He creates, and he's amazing. Nathan, can you just tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I'm a songwriter, composer, producer, and educator. So basically writing and producing all of my own music in my home studio. And then what I'm doing primarily is teaching other folks to also produce their own music in their home studio. The technology is more affordable than ever, and it's easier than ever. But there's a lot you have to learn. It's obviously the same with video. There's a lot to learn as far as actually getting the quality up there. So that's really why I started my YouTube channel, and then also why I've started building courses and work with other home studio producers one-on-one as well.
Awesome, man, that's great. Well, let me just recognize who's here, starting with 4H. Ivan is here. Good to have you, Ivan. Glad to see you. And this is 4K Productions Terry. Terry says, Nathan, I like your new song. You recently posted a video on making 1 million sound like more.
Violin. Yeah, 1 violin sound.
Oh, violin. That's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Hunt and Peck piano mangler myself.
Nice.
I play the guitar, but I play it badly. So, you know.
Well, you can see my MIDI keyboard right here, right?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
That's awesome. We have Dafter Things. Tony is in the house. He is from England. Welcome, Tony. It's great to have you, sir. Tony is a stop motion animation artist. He does brick films, and they are wonderfully hysterical.
I scored a brick film a few years ago.
Oh, is that right? Did you really?
It's actually got, I think it's got like, I don't know, 40, 50,000 views on YouTube now. It's pretty cool.
No kidding. Yeah. Dang. Who is it for? Do you remember?
Aaron Fisher. I could send you a link.
Yeah, you have to send me a link. I'll put it up.
It was super cool. Like, he's a buddy of mine. Actually, the animated film I was telling you about that I did, he's an animator.
Before we got online, he was telling me.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about that. Yeah, he's an animator, but back when he and I first met, he was doing stop motion, and now he's an animator. He's an animator in Seattle now. So. Oh,
very cool, very cool. So Gray Motion's in the house. This is Greg. He's from Aurora, Colorado. Sort of our old stomping grounds right there. Farrah Films is in the house. Great to have you, sir, Zach. And also the Wrench Reviews. Good afternoon to you too, sir. Thanks everybody for being here. Believe it or not, Nathan and I have actually known each other for over 20 years. And you say, well, Nathan doesn't look like he's old enough to know a guy my age for 20 years. So do you want to tell him or do you want me to?
I was one of your students in karate. My family was part of your dojo for years and actually worked all the way up to 2nd degree black belt.
Yep, with you. That's right. He trained with me for years and years. Wait a minute. Sorry, Greg. Didn't mean to offend you. Not Saudi Aurora. You're from Lakewood. Lakewood. Apologize there, Greg. Don't want you to come find me here. I live somewhere other than Virginia now. Just kidding. I'm still in Virginia. Yes, Nathan. Back in the late 90s, when I was in my early 30s, which was a long time ago, I had a spectacular family of very intelligent, physically gifted people join the Larsens. mom, dad, and 3 kids. The youngest of which was this guy right here.
Oh, no. Oh, that is so funny. I cannot believe that. You're going to have to send that to me.
Yep, that's him.
Man.
There he is right there. Very intense. Look at that intense look.
Man.
Yeah. Woo, man. He's an intense guy right there. So yeah, they all trained with me for years and years. That picture is from 2002. Was taken right after I got married, actually.
That would have been 8.
You were 8 and I was 30 years old. And so it's been a long time. We've known each other for a long time. So
man,
it's great to talk to you again. And now you're married. You have a son of your own. Mm-hmm. Congratulations! How exciting! That's the thing. I'll tell you what. Oh, here you go. Here's a good question. Is that a picture of Nathan as a black belt? He's actually a brown belt in that picture.
That was secondary brown belt.
Yeah, I think so. Let me look here.
Like I had 2.
Yeah, you got 2. So he was a ways out from black belt still. Whoops, wrong screen. There we go. In my school, I didn't award a black belt to anybody under the age of 16, but I did award junior black belts. So if you were under the age of 16, I would award a junior black belt, which had a big white stripe down the middle of it. And so Nathan actually earned his junior black belt with me. Yeah, that's a good question. Did I take that photo or is that a pro shot? I took that photo myself. Yeah. I took all the pictures. Yep. I took all the pictures. And Nathan, I'm like, do you want to hold a weapon? Oh yeah, I want to hold the sword.
Give me the sword.
Give me the sword, man. Yeah, the sword. Oh, I want to. Yeah, that's one, right?
That's amazing.
Yeah, look at the intense look on there, man. And believe it or not, that's a bed sheet it's an old bed sheet that I used because, it's too cheap to buy real stuff, that is cool grandkid materials. The Wrench Review says he has Native Instruments Complete Control MIDI controller here as well.
You can tell. Yeah, you can always tell because you can see the colors here.
Yeah? Is that how you know?
Yeah, it's amazing.
I wouldn't actually know. So.
Whenever I see other people with Native Instruments controls, I can tell. Yeah, you can tell pretty quick.
Yep. So Gray Motion, Greg asked, did you live in Colorado Springs then?
I did. My wife and I live in Lincoln, Nebraska. We've been living here for 6 years.
It's been a while. But the Springs, actually, you guys lived out, I think, east, right? We
lived in Peyton.
Yeah, you were in Peyton.
Yeah, technically Peyton.
Which is Colorado Springs metro area, but it's east. It's halfway to Kansas, basically. All right, maybe not halfway, but it's pretty far out into the
it was like 20 minute. It was like 20-minute drive to your dojo.
Yeah, it was a ways. Yeah. My school was on the east side of town, so yeah. And Terry says, well, that is very pro looking. Thank you. I actually have a backup hard drive. This is it right here, and it says pictures and videos and blah blah blah, and that hard drive actually has over 60,000 pictures that I took, along with a bunch of videos and stuff from my 28 years of being a professional karate instructor. So it's been a long time. Greg built the substation in Peyton, so you know where you're talking about. Greg owns a company that lays fiber optic cable. So
oh wow, yeah, we lived in Woodman Hills.
Oh yeah,
yep. I
know where that is. I don't know if I ever went out to your house. I don't think I ever did. I think I only saw you at the dojo and then in around the Springs doing other whatever, things that we were doing. But at any rate, that's us. That's our background right there. And so let's talk about, let me see. So here's the thing. I went and looked. So since we've known each other since, the late 90s and early 2000s, I decided that I would look up slang terms from the late 90s and early 2000s, and I'm going to use them during our interview. Okay? Yeah. All right. And
Nice.
personally, I think that that's pretty fly. Check that one off. There we go. Okay. All right.
Feel free not prepared.
Feel free to jump in there anytime.
That's awesome.
So tell me a little bit about the kind. Let me do this real quickly. I do want to just throw up. This is Nathan's channel, YouTube channel, Nathan Larsen Music, and I put the link in the chat room already, and there's a link in the description if you're watching this after the fact. And you can see that he has a lot of just videos talking about how to do this and how to do that and so on and so forth. So what kinds of things do you do for your clients? I know you've actually scored some films, short films and whatever, and what kinds of things do you really do?
Yeah, so my background is really eclectic from a musical perspective. Actually, back when we were living in the Springs, I was studying under a songwriter, and so I got into songwriting back when I was just a kid, when I was actually at your dojo. And just all the way through high school and whatnot, I was doing a ton of writing, got into production when I was 14, because I had a teacher who was like, "You're writing a lot of music, you should be recording this stuff." And so he got me into using GarageBand at the beginning, and then a couple years in, I bought my own laptop and got Logic, which is what I use now, which is a professional workstation, and basically just spent an insane amount of time doing it, and then went to college, got my degree in music composition, so writing music. And all along the way, I was still doing a ton of production. I became basically full-time freelance when I was about 20, and then was doing anything and everything basically that would just pay. So anything from film scoring to writing for high school choirs to actually producing artists and whatnot. And then all along the way, I knew that my passion, apart from creating and making music, my passion was talking about music and talking about production and talking about all there is you can do, and like being more of a teacher. But I never really wanted to do it in a traditional school environment, and I knew I wanted to kind of have more control over what it is that I'm teaching, how I'm doing it. And so that's kind of how I got into starting my YouTube channel. And it was kind of a crazy deal. It was like 3.5 years ago I started my channel, and pretty quickly into it I got just burned out and ended up taking about a 2-year break from music, and just like basically walked away, came back. And I knew I was going to come back, but I think I needed a little bit of a mental reset. Came back and just knew that it's like all I want to do is teach and help other people who are honestly like I was when I was starting out, without a lot of resources, without a lot of the knowledge to help people get there faster. Because for me, it took a really long time for me to get to a point where I could like actually be happy with what I was listening to. Even when I started taking paid jobs, I was not happy, or rarely happy, with how things sounded. And it took probably 6+ years of doing it till I finally felt like, okay, like I'm actually producing music that is comparable to the stuff you're hearing, on television, or the stuff that you're hearing on the radio.
Huh. Cool. Well, that is dope.
Bazing.
All right. Cross that one off.
I use that word all the time still.
Dope.
Dope.
That's dope, man. That's dope.
That's
awesome. I don't. Let me just tell you. I don't know if you noticed, that wasn't my normal kind of deal there. Let me see. Adapter thinks this. I was sure that I had made a really good opening to original song, 6-7 notes, played it to my son, who said, "Yeah, that's the music."
Never done that.
Here's a question for you. The Wrench Reviews asks, does Nathan do mostly composing, or do you do sound design as well?
It depends on what you're talking about when you say sound design. Because there, especially in film, there's sound design where it's like actually creating the elements that you're hearing, like Foley. I don't do Foley. So that would be creating the sonic environment that you're in a movie. Oh, I didn't see if the question changed or not. Yeah, so the sonic development in the movie, like footsteps or like if you're hearing wind, those types of things, I don't do that. But when you talk about sound design from the perspective of like music production, absolutely. I mean, that's just a huge part of music production, creating layers of things, understanding synthesis, understanding how instruments interact with one another, what frequencies work well with other frequencies. So yeah, I would say kind of the short answer of that is yes, just not in the sense of film sound design.
Right. Cool. Very good. If you have any questions about anything, fire away and we will try to answer them the best that we can. So, and wait a minute, he just added to it. However, it has not populated on my screen yet. So hang on, it'll show up there. In the meantime, let me say that is tight.
Man,
cross that off. Tight. Boy, now we're coming back, right? Yeah. I'm gonna keep going too with this. See how that works?
I'm excited to see what the next one is.
Okay, here we go. Robustwell asks, where do you get your inspiration for original melodies?
Oh man, that's a great question.
That is a good question.
That is also a very challenging question because I think melody is definitely one of those things where there's a certain element of inspiration. There's a certain element of just like understanding what actually makes a good melody. So, and it depends on what kind of melody you're talking about in the first place. So I think the first thing is whatever genre of music you're writing, I think the starting point is understanding what makes a particular melody in that genre work, because different genres have different types of melodies. So like jazz melody is going to be significantly different than something that's like, mainstream pop or like rock and roll or something like that. So for me, I do a ton of listening, and the way I listen to music is not passive. There's like two ways of listening to music. You can passively listen to music or you can actively listen to music. When you're actively listening to music, you are basically mentally understanding or working to understand what is it that I'm actually hearing? What is it that makes this work? And a lot of times for me, especially when I was first starting, I don't do this so much anymore, but it would literally be transcribing what it is I'm hearing. So if I'm listening to some song, I'm like, man, that melody is amazing. That's really, really great. I would literally figure out what that melody is on the piano. And then from there, like Picasso, the famous artist, has a quote basically like, good artists borrow, great artists steal. And so part of learning how to write music is essentially how we learn how to speak, which is by first mimicking, and then you basically figure out how grammar works. You start figuring out how language works, and you start being able to kind of figure out how to actually make that your own. And then that's where you get from being a baby, not knowing how to say anything, to being able to say mom, dad, and then put together small sentences. So not saying it takes that long, obviously, but I think melody writing, music writing in general is definitely like that, where it's a lot of at the beginning, just stealing, and the beauty of creative stealing is that by the nature of you doing it, you've recontextualized it. And so like, you're not actually stealing. So I'm not condoning like plagiarizing, but by basically taking what others are using and then finding a way to put it in your own kind of way of doing things, it's going to be original in that way.
Right. So you're almost being inspired by something.
Yeah. And I mean, like, this happens all the time where like for me, the kind of music that I'm writing today is actually super different than the kind of music I was writing even a year ago. I'm doing a lot of cinematic pop music. So I'm listening to other artists who are in cinematic pop. I'm listening to Ruel, Fleury, and some other artists like that. And then I'm basically finding ways of like, how can I take their ideas and then like almost like overlay it onto like my own worldview, my own way that I see music, the way that I do things. And just by the nature of overlaying it with how I do things and how I structure things, it's going to be original.
Right.
It's actually really hard to steal like musical ideas from people. It's very difficult to do that.
Right. Well, and in the martial arts, I steal things all the time. I don't care. If it works for me,
a knife,
then I'll take it.
whatever.
And a lot of times I'll see something and I'll go, well, that's not how I would do it. But if I tweak this a little bit, well, now I'm gonna do it like this. And the next thing you know, man, it's working great for me.
Yes.
So, that happens all the time.
Like mixing is the same, like with, because like music production and mixing, they're part of the same kind of world, but they're two different processes. And so like production is where you're like actually putting things in, you're recording things, you're layering things, you're actually building what you're going to hear. Mixing is when you're actually going in and you're, using EQ, compression, all the fancy terms and plugins and things like that to actually start making it sound cohesive and actually, kind of be what the song needs to be and kind of get out of the way and make the sound professional, essentially. Well, like mixing, you often are doing referencing, which is where you're listening to other songs that you basically want your songs mixed to sound like, and then you're going back and forth listening. Okay, that sounds really bright to me, but mine sounds really dull. What can I do to make it sound like bright?
Right. Yeah, and Terry says that's how VFX works as well. And it does.
There's a ton of overlap between filmmaking and music production, honestly.
Yeah, because it's all art.
Yeah,
and martial arts
and technology.
And that's the big thing that I've found is that my martial arts are very similar in terms of the learning process as that it is to making films, and maybe it isn't the same as far as any art. Whether it's sculpting or painting or music design or whatever.
Yep.
And Tony says already, I think that this was just answered with the active listening question or statement, but any tips on how to match sounds to emotions for incidental music for films like trills, etc.?
So any tips on how to match sounds
to emotions?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny. We were kind of talking about that. Like when you're talking about film scoring in particular, you always want to be using emotional terms and not necessarily musical terms, because especially if you're a filmmaker that's not a musician. So as far as I think a lot of that,
and we actually talked about that before we went on.
Yeah,
right. The idea was we were talking before we came on that, hey, you told the story about your first gig. Tell me that again.
Well, why don't I answer his question first?
Okay.
I have a couple things that I would say to that.
Okay.
So we don't get off the road too much. So as far as like matching sound to emotion, like you said, as far as like active listening, is go and listen to the types of film scores that you want to kind of replicate. And then again, it's kind of, especially if you're not a musician, it's going to be a little trial and error of like trying to figure out what exactly is happening. But like what I do with people one-on-one, and I actually do this with my production students, is have them do this exercise of actively listening. And then they literally have to like basically have a timeline of the song. And then they're mapping out like everything that's happening to basically create this like, all right, like right here in this moment, I'm hearing some like ear candy, which what we would call just like little cool accent things that are going on. Maybe it's like a vocal that's kind of like a string part or a percussive hit or whatever. And you're basically mapping out how that works, what's happening. So like with emotion with incidental music for film could be instrumental, because it could be dependent on like what type of instrument is it that's doing it. Because like horns are going to sound very different depending on how they're played in terms of like with volume or like what kind of articulation they're doing, things like that. And so I think a lot of it, like you said, is just like being a very active listener and trying to think, okay, like what is happening, and then basically work to understand why it's happening and what's making that work. And I know that's kind of a vague answer. I'm trying to kind of communicate in a way of, I know that most of you listening and watching are filmmakers, not necessarily musicians. But if you can have the opportunity to learn a little bit about just some basic music theory, it's going to make a huge difference if you're wanting to do that yourself, because a lot of those emotional words that we then tie to music, kind of the bridge to those is having a basic understanding of music theory. So like, everyone talks about like, well, a minor key is sad, major is happy. That's actually really simplistic. There's more to it than that. But there's all sorts of things where it's like music theory can actually answer a lot of those questions.
Okay. That makes sense. That's pretty cool.
Which I wish I could say is just like as simple as go watch a YouTube video on it. But it takes a lot of work and takes a lot of practice. And I think there's a reason why filmmakers typically are working with people who are musicians for their music, not doing it themselves. And it's knowing like what your strengths are, and then working with the people that are going to be able to help bring your vision to life. But yeah, as far as the story, we talked about my first professional gig as a composer. I was 19 years old, and I had basically met this filmmaker through a mutual friend, and he and his wife owned a film company, and they were doing advertising. They were doing videos for nonprofits, those types of things. And I basically told him, hey, like, I really want to get into film scoring. Would you guys give me a shot, kind of a thing? And they're like, sure, yeah, like we let's do it. And they paid me for this basically to score this ad. And I told them, well, what I really want is for you to send me basically notes on what it is that you want, and like put the SMPTE code so I can kind of line it up in my workstation, so I can know like, okay, at like 10 seconds they want this, at 30 seconds they want this. And I mean, it was something like, 5 seconds theme A, and then like 20 seconds theme B, and kind of something around these lines. And they were very vague, but I'm thinking, I got this, like I can do it. I'm just going to do what I think would work well, theme. And so as someone who is a composer and who has a pretty strong educational background in like what these words mean musically, like what they actually mean, I start writing these like actual themes, and kind of have this idea of like, I think they're maybe going for something like the more orchestral or whatever. Cause like when you use a word like theme, like I'm thinking maybe more orchestral. And I send them the first draft, and I think I sent them maybe 30, 45 seconds. It wasn't the whole thing. But I'm like, hey, like, what do you guys think of this? And their response was, this is not even close. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, no, like theme, like verse 1, and then theme B, like chorus. I'm like, what? Like those are like not even the same thing. So we were talking about that in the context of not being a musician. If you are not a musician and you're working with someone who is a musician, it's really important that you don't try to act like you are a musician, because it's pretty often, and I've worked with multiple directors at this point, like many, and there's not a single one of them that I've worked with that I could actually have like an intelligent musical conversation regarding what is actually happening musically. And so my job as a composer working with a filmmaker is to actually steer them. And I learned this right away with that first experience, was I cannot use musical terms, because there's way too much risk of miscommunication. Because I might say like, yeah, I'm really thinking like we could go in a minor key here, and they're thinking like minor, sad, and it's like, no, I don't want it sad. I'm like, no, like that, it wouldn't actually be sad, but like it's gonna give a little more like, whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I just learned that like using using words of emotion, like explain to me what you want your audience to feel. That's like always what I start with a director, is tell me what you want your audience to feel. What do they need to be feeling while they're watching the scene? And then from that, I'm just going to dig, asking questions to really get down to what you as a filmmaker actually want your audience to experience. It's my role and my job is to take all of those words that you're using and then figuring out what that means musically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very cool. So I'm going to go to Wrench Review's question. Do you start, and I don't know how accurate this is because I'm not a musician. Do you start with a melodic line?
That's a good question.
Or do you work from a chord progression and then draw the melody from that?
That's a really good question. All of the above. So there's, and I'm actually, this is really cool. I literally am maybe going to be making a video on my channel about this very thing here in probably the next week or two. That there's no wrong or right way to start writing music. This is a question I get all the time from people on social media. Is like, should I start with a lyric first, or melody, or chord progression, or whatever? And the answer is just whatever feels the most natural. And so for me, I have, and I'll show you I know you're showing the screen here, but
I'm showing your YouTube channel.
Yeah, why don't you come back to my webcam here, because I'll literally show you like what this looks like on my phone. You can see this. This there is these are all just tons and tons of voice memos in my voice recorder app, just tons. And I just went through like 2 months ago and deleted like most of them. So that's all in the last 2 months of here. Oh, sorry. this is going to be so embarrassing. I'm sorry. This is not meant to be sung by me. I've got a female singer I work with a lot. But this is literally something I did like 2 days ago. When you tell me that you love me. So that's pretty terrible. But like, and you can even hear like I'm doing like do 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 because I don't know what the words are going to be. So I start with like I've got like this like one phrase that sounds kind of cool, and I've got this melody. I do that a lot, but I also a lot of times will sit on the piano and start coming up with like, man, I like this chord progression. This feels really good. Or I might start with like drums. I might start with a beat. I might just start with a beat and like a bass line. I might start like with my guitar. My whole thing is that for me as a composer and especially since what I'm doing now mostly is songwriting and producing music that's for licensing, at least when I'm talking about like what I'm actually working on. And so most of it is lyrical. It's vocal. So I try everything. And even though I've been doing this for years, no song is ever written the same way. So there's no right or wrong way of doing it. And that's, I think, one of the beautiful things about music is that there are so many different vantage points you can look at it.
Right. All right. I'm going to post the link to your YouTube channel again in the chat room here, so you can click on that and stay tuned for that video that he's going to make on this exact question right here. That's awesome. Here's a good question. This would be more like my kind of question. What advice do you have for those of us who are on level 0 to make custom music, background music to a video?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing is you need to have some sort of a DAW, which is basically a digital audio workstation. So like for you guys, that may be like Premiere or Final Cut or whatever program you're using to actually do your video in. We have the same thing in music. So for me, I like to pull this up here. This is my DAW.
I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show it right now.
So this is my DAW. This is Logic Pro. This is a professional DAW. I think it's like $200, which is one of the cheaper ones in the professional world of production. GarageBand is another one. So if you don't want to buy one, GarageBand is basically the little brother to Logic Pro. And as far as getting started, sorry, I'm going to go back to...
That's okay.
So as far as getting started, GarageBand, I think, is a really fantastic platform for or a DAW for beginners because they have a lot of built-in loops. They have a lot of built-in sounds, and they've got a lot of ways that you can just experiment. And if you are at level 0, I think the main thing is starting to just put things together. And so, I've worked with... when I was in college, we would work with high school students and kind of getting them into like creating their own music and stuff in GarageBand. And so much of it was just like pulling from these loop libraries and just starting to stack stuff up and figure out like what sounds work together, what sounds don't work together. And like, it's just so experimental at the beginning. And there are so many different ways to start writing music. And there's so many different kind of levels of like writing, because there's writing, there's production, there's arranging. So there are all these kind of different segments of the process. So I think as a level 0, the goal should not be, I'm going to make this thing that's going to sound just like absolutely amazing. Cause it's like, that's actually, it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of experience to get to that point. Yeah. So I think at level 0, the goal needs to be, how can I just like learn what sounds work together?
Right.
And then, as far as like background music, the nice thing with background music is that usually it's tucked away. And so if you've got something sort of like video and you're wanting to do your own custom music, as long as the music's not necessarily going to be like right up front and center, you can get away with a little bit more. You don't have to be, I mean, it's like, go to Audio Jungle. I don't know if you're familiar with Audio Jungle.
Yes,
it's a licensing. I mean, like, but Audio Jungle is where you can get a lot of music for licensing. But like, honestly, for me, as someone who's a producer, like I go on Audio Jungle and I'm just like, I mean, you could pump this stuff out in like 10 minutes. Yeah. Because and I'm not saying that like it's just terrible quality or anything like that, but it's like most of the music's like quite simple. Right. So even like go to Audio Jungle, listen to examples, and be like, I'm gonna try to like remake that thing.
Try to replicate that. Yeah, that's how we do it in the VFX world too. Greg says closest I got to mixing my own tunes was GarageBand. Right. And
yeah, and I actually have a video on my channel comparing GarageBand to Logic and explaining like why Logic is a better program if you're
Yeah.
going for more of the professional sound. But again, like
Mhm.
that video is not meant to be like, don't use GarageBand. It's
Right.
meant to
It's
show,
just showing off.
it's
Yeah,
meant to
this is
show
here
like,
and this is here,
yeah,
but they're both good tools.
yeah, it's like, why would you
Sure.
use iMovie versus Final Cut?
Yeah.
Two very different programs for two very different
Right.
people.
Exactly. Yeah. For Terry says, I've noticed certain sections in the orchestra just work better with different emotions. Would you say that in general that's true, but you can still sort of move
Absolutely.
different
Yep.
instruments towards different emotions?
Absolutely. You're right. Violin and cello, really good for sad emotions. I mean, honestly, so if you look into like orchestration, which is something I'm a huge fan, like I have books on this stuff that I just like geek out on. Strings in general are by far the most versatile instrument group in the orchestra, at least. That's if you're looking at the orchestra. Now, if you're looking at like pop production, the world is your oyster because you can use literally any sound you could ever think of. But in the orchestra in particular, strings are insanely versatile. They can do happy, jovial type stuff. They can do really sad, somber, sorrowful stuff. But as far as like, going for like, let's just talk about like sad emotion, like horns, like French horn is a fantastic way of like a fantastic instrument for doing that as well. French horn is really good. Oboe is what I would describe as a very weepy instrument, but it can also be a really happy instrument. But it's like all like has to do with the context of what's happening musically, and then the orchestration is just used to like be the color. So like imagine like composing music as like, I just like made a stick figure. That's the composition. Orchestration is now I'm going to like take that stick figure and add color and like turn it into a thing that has life. That's what orchestration is.
Cool. So I'm gonna run a few comments here. Reaper.
Yeah, Reaper's good.
Fruity Loops, Stage Light, Linux Multimedia Studio, Octamed from way back. That's like on the Amiga. That's like 80s, 90s kind of stuff.
So as far as like, I think one of those was like one of the, can you show those comments again?
Yeah. Let's see.
One.
Reaper.
Okay, the next one. There you go.
Fruity Loops.
So there's no write my music button in any of them.
There's no write my music button.
I saw that.
Darn it. Man, if they had that, I'd be a musician, man. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Honestly.
I got the haircut. Shoot.
Yep. I mean, heck, that's seriously where like GarageBand is actually pretty nifty in that sense. Like, again, like the loop library is ginormous, and you can use that to like at least start off your inspiration. And the thing is too, is you don't have to play an instrument to do this stuff. You can literally like, if you can learn how, like you can actually draw in MIDI manually with your mouse. And I know a lot of producers who are making incredible music who do not play an instrument.
Wow. That's cool. That's really cool.
I was working, I'd when I was in college, I worked under a producer who is very successful. And he knew I was a keyboardist because piano is my primary instrument. And so we're in the studio and we were working on this track. We would do a lot of music for, it's called like, it would be like licensing. So in television, this is very common where like an ad company, they're like, hey, we're Coca-Cola. We're going to have this new ad coming out. They would actually send out a brief, what's called a brief, which is basically like a paragraph explaining this is what this ad's going to be about. We're looking for music like this. And if you can throw in something like this or like add these lyrics that talk about this, that'd be cool. And then they send them off to their music, like the music supervisor. That music supervisor will then take those and then basically send that off to either licensing libraries that they've got all the ins with. Those libraries then go to their composers and say, hey, Coca-Cola is dropping an ad. Here's the brief. We want you to write something so we can pitch it. And then you would literally just like, you've got 2 days. So you literally have to like write and produce and mix an entire track and send it. So we'd be doing this. So we're doing this one particular track and he has all these keyboard parts that he wants. And he's like, hey, I need you to hop on the synth here and do this bass part. And I'm like, cool. What key are we in? He's like, I don't know, that one. I was like, what?
We're in lock and key.
Like, what? Like, what do you mean? Yeah. Like, you don't know what key? And he's like, no idea. See, like, he like couldn't even tell you what chords we were using.
Probably backdoor. Key to the back door.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it just goes to show that like you don't need to have like, I mean, for me, I've got a pretty high level of education in music. Totally not necessary. Like you don't need it. I mean, like 95% of stuff I learned in college, it's like, I'm never going to use that.
Right. Here's a question. Here's an interesting question. Are there any programs that utilize the traditional clef and note structure as opposed to the data blocks?
Oh yeah, you're talking. Yeah. So here, I'll show you in my DOM. So like, let's take a look at this sound here, so you can see it. Can you hear that?
Yes.
Okay. So what they're talking about here is when I open this up, you actually see the piano roll, which is, you can see all the stuff, all the data. You can go in Logic and actually open up a score feature.
Oh, wow. Cool.
You can look that up. Now, as far as like actually plugging the notes in, you can't do that in the score window itself. So you would have to kind of learn how to use the piano roll. But here's kind of a quick little deal is all the notes are right here where my cursor is. And that's actually showing you the piano. And then what notes they correspond to here on the grid. So when I hit this note, notice that this particular key on the piano lights up. And so there's a lot of value in learning how the grid works, or how piano roll works. But as far as just like being able to just plug in notes into like traditional notation, that's just not how most digital audio workstations work.
Right. Cool. Very cool. Let me see. Hey, Mystery 1307 is here. Great to have you, sir. I got a headache from all the steps you just mentioned there. Yeah, bummer.
I wish I could say that music was this super simple, like
it isn't.
Just go play some notes, guys.
That's how VFX is. You just press a magic. There's just the auto magic button, poof, and it just happens. It's amazing. So easy.
It's the holy grail of creative.
Yeah, we call it the auto magic button. You know, you want to put whatever special effect, you know, like an Avengers disintegration effect. You just press the auto magic button and it just it's great.
Make that thing do that one thing.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then if you want like to blow up the Death Star, you just push the auto magic button and then poof, it just happens. It's really
absolutely.
It's just that easy. I'm sure music's the same.
I mean, I've watched some videos on like After Effects because I've just been like curious. And like usually I leave within like 2 minutes of a 45-minute long lesson because I'm just like, all right, I have no idea what you're talking about. So it goes both ways.
Wait a minute. That's how it works. Not. All right, I'm going to cross that one off now. Here we go. That's awesome. You probably thought I forgot. See, I got my notes right here.
Waiting for it.
I'm down, but I'm getting close to being done because I'm running out.
I was about to say.
It's getting close. So you were showing me before we started a little animated feature that you did.
Yeah.
I don't know if you still have it up or not, but it was pretty darn cool.
Yeah, this is kind of what this project looked like. Here, I'll kind of zoom it out. And if you guys are like I was when I was first learning like video, I'd see like all the video layers and stuff. I'm like, what on earth am I even looking at? If you guys are thinking that, each one of these individual pieces here that I'm highlighting, those are each basically a different instrument that I've recorded either live with a microphone or digitally through MIDI. So the only thing in here that's actually alive is all of this stuff down here that I've highlighted, these deals here. And that's all strings. Everything else is digital. But yeah, as far as like how my process works with film scoring, I would import the video, which I've got this right here. And then I would also open up my display here so I can see the time, which I had to pull in a different video because this isn't the actual one.
Right.
And I actually sometimes ask my directors if they can include the SMPTE code in the video itself as well. So you can see that in the video as well at the bottom there.
Right.
So this was this animated film. And as I'm moving it along in the video, if you see it's moving along in my project as well.
Oh, okay.
And so this is locked in time-wise. It's locked in to be happening at the same time. So when I'm composing and when I'm scoring stuff, I'm pulling it in, and I'm actually, doing it in here. Now, a film like this is significantly more intricate than, say, just like, here, just create like a little dance track for some background music. I mean, this is music that is specifically for this video. So there are all sorts of key changes and tempo changes, and it's very complex stuff happening compositionally. But as far as just seeing what it looks like as a composer and producer for a video, this is what I'm doing. I'm just pulling it into my program. I'm pulling in the instruments that I'm wanting to use, and then I'm going to start actually, either I'm going to pick the area in a film that I feel the most confident I can start with and actually do the fastest, or I'll just start the beginning. So like with this video, let's do here. Yeah. Here, I'll turn on the sound here. There's no music, and I had cut the audio from the actual film. There's no music happening here.
Right.
And then right here. And then the music comes in there. So these are the conversations I'm having with my director. When do you want the music to happen? When is the music coming in? When do you want it to come out? And so, I've got music happening all the way through here, and then music drops out again. There's no music here, no music here, no music here, no music here, and then it's about to come in right here. And then that comes in, that does its thing, and then there's this, where it comes back out again. Hit, no music. And so again, all of this stuff is conversation I'm having with my director to know, when is the music coming in, when is it coming out, when do you need X, Y, Z happening. And so a really good thing to do from a filmmaker's perspective, if you ever are working with a composer, is to do what's called a spot session. And that's literally where you would watch the film with your composer. It could be through like a Zoom call or Skype or whatever. It doesn't have to be face-to-face, but you're watching it with them and having a conversation along the way. Like, so then he and I are watching this, and he's telling me, hey, I don't want any music here. This is just gonna be Foley, which the Foley would be like this.
Yeah.
So that's what that sound turned on. And so the Foley's happening. It's just that. So then once the music comes in, it's a little more impactful. You're actually noticing, oh, like, here's the music. And it's when she's getting the eviction, she looks at the paper. It's an eviction notice. And that's where it cuts to that like little intro
the title
deal. Yeah, the title. And so, yeah, as far as that goes, just being very open with communication. And so, he would actually send me the SMPTE code, the SMPTE code, like, okay, at 102, music drops out. And then I don't want it to come in until 111.14 or whatever this is, 111. And then it comes back in. Okay, cool. I need it to drop out again at 1:43. I don't want any more music until 2 minutes. And so that's what it would look like on a film like this, where it's like a little bit longer. It's not just like a little 1 minute ad. I mean, if it's a 1 minute ad, there's music probably happening throughout the whole thing. But something like this, where it's actually a short film, there's space to be having the music drop out and come back in.
Cool. All right, here's a question. Wait a minute. Oh, it isn't populated on my thing yet, but let me just read it. Robust Well asks, oh, here it is. How often do you have to recut the music because the director re-edited the film?
Yeah, that's a thing that happens.
That does happen, really?
Yeah.
I'm thinking you're going to say, oh, no, it's a lockdown cut.
Usually it's done. Usually I'm going to tell them like, hey, like when you get this to me, you need to be done, like editing it. I have had it happen though, where they're like, oh, well, like we kind of were getting into it and we just decided we'd like cut a minute here. And I'm just like, you did what? Like, and they're like, yeah, like that won't be a big deal. I mean, it's just like a minute, this is gone, right? You can just like chop it off. And it's just like, nope. Like, thanks guys. So that has happened. I've also had it happen where what I scored, and then I'll score something. This happened, I think, on the first and second gig that I ever got with this, the first company that I worked with. And I like did the whole thing. We finally got it figured out. They end up being happy with it. Their client's happy with it. And I end up watching the ad, like once they actually release it, I'm like, what is this? Like they literally like basically recut the whole film to better match the music that I had composed.
Oh.
So instead of them saying, we decided to recut the whole thing, we need new music, it was they actually cut the film to the music that I did. More often than not, regarding this question, how often do you have to recut the music because the director re-edited it? Not super frequently that actually happens where they re-edited it or cut a minute off or whatever. More often what happens is you just have to straight up do a rewrite because the director doesn't like it. That happens all the time. In fact, it like I was like the Harry Potter movies. I think it was I forget which one it was. It was Nicholas Hooper. I think he did the fifth one, the fifth movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I was reading this interview that he had done, and he had written like 15 plus hours of music. And basically you're only hearing like maybe an hour worth of music.
Right. Sure.
And just because so much of that music was like, nope, nope, nope,
Wow.
nope, nope, nope. And so what you're doing is creating what's called a mock-up. And in Hollywood, it's a lot different because you're actually going to be using an orchestra.
Right.
In my situation, I'm doing all of it in-house. So if I need live instruments, I'm finding the musicians that are going to come over to my studio, or I'll hire it out to someone who has the ability to track it themselves. So you would basically create a mock-up, which is just like basically like a demo. And most of the time nowadays, the demos are almost as good as the final thing because the technology is so good. So yeah, basically just like, here's your mock-up. What do you think? For me, I rarely score like the whole thing before sending out my first draft because it's a total waste of time for me to score the whole thing just to be told like 95% of it has to go.
We didn't like it.
Yeah. So usually what I'm doing is saying, we're discussing reference tracks. What do you want this to sound like that you already have heard? So he's sending me examples of like, I like all this stuff. And then I'm like kind of asking more questions like, well, what do you like about this thing? Like, do you like this? Is it this? Oh, no, it's this. Well, that helps me know where he's coming from.
Right.
Better. And different directors are way better at communicating this stuff. I've got two in particular that I've worked with that are just phenomenal at explaining what they want. And then I've worked with a couple others that I'm just like, it's like pulling teeth to get any sort of grasp of what is they want, or they have no idea what they want. And they're just like, well, that's what you're here for. And it's like, it doesn't work like that. So yeah.
Fascinating. I was going to ask you a question and I forgot what I was going to ask you. Isn't that terrible? That is uncool, man. Uncool.
Super uncool. You forgot the question.
Yeah, that's terrible. Well, if you have a question for Nathan, ask away. Let me ask you this. As far as from a music perspective, what's your favorite movie?
Ooh.
From a music perspective.
Super hard. Depends on the mood I'm in. The Incredibles is insane. I love The Incredibles. It's like super dope. Michael Giacchino is probably my favorite composer. He did Up, he did Up, Incredibles, a lot of the Pixar movies he does. I am thinking, King Kong, the Peter Jackson King Kong. The music in that is just unbelievably good. The thematic development throughout the whole thing is just, I love it so much. It's amazing. That was James Newton Howard was the composer of that one. That's like the 3 hour long. Have you seen it? Have you seen that one?
I have. Yeah.
It's like the 3 hour long one.
Yeah.
With Jack Black in it, which is really random, but it's like, what are you doing in this movie? But the music in that is incredible, like this, because he really captures the essence of like Beauty and the Beast, which is such a prevailing theme throughout that movie. And that's a soundtrack that I go back to all of the time.
All right, here's a good question for you. Can you watch a film with no sound and get some idea of the music you might use immediately just by seeing it?
Yep.
The visuals of it.
Yeah. So I would say that usually I'll watch something one time and I get extremely excited. So like the brick film that I did, which was the first one I did with this guy who animated the film that I was just showing you guys, that he also did that brick film.
Oh, okay.
It's called oh my gosh, what's it called?
Have to look it up now.
Oh, what's it called? Hold on.
You'll be able to find it, I'm sure.
System. It's called Fix System, and it's like a 10-minute long, a little
Wow.
short. But anyway,
Holy cow.
and I mean, it took him 2 years to make it. I mean,
Wow, man,
yeah,
I guess.
crazy. He's done some other stuff too. So as far as like that goes, like I remember watching that film and like literally it was just like immediately it's like, oh man, I know exactly what I want to do with this.
Right.
But then I did another film that was kind of like this post-nuclear like short where it's like showing this guy who's like basically like in this post-apocalyptic nuclear whatever. And I was like watching it the first time, I was like, this is so cool. Like, I'm so excited to do this. And I like watched it again. I'm like, how the heck am I going to do this? What in the world am I going to do with this? And sometimes like that's where it starts. Is just like I have no idea what I'm going to do, and then it's just a matter of listening to reference tracks, which that's the other reason I like listening to reference tracks. Right. Gives me a sonic vibe that they're going for, and then that helps me. And then usually what I'm doing is I'm just going to pull up a piano patch, and then I'm just going to start improvising over the video, which obviously not everyone can improvise. I can. So I can just basically start like spontaneously composing whatever I feel the emotion is of the film.
Interesting. Yeah, whenever I make a short film or a VFX shot and this and that, I get distracted by the sound, because the sound is so powerful sometimes that you don't really, and I will watch my entire thing without sound at all and catch all bunch of things that I need to fix. You know what I mean? That I would have never caught because the sound impacts me. So
sound is powerful. I mean, there's a lot to be said about, like, I mean, music is, I truly believe is like 50% of what makes a film work.
Yeah, I agree. And, I mean, I when I was a kid and I saw the very first Star Wars movie, that was the first time I was really cognizant of the idea that the music was driving the narrative, especially the final, scene where they attack and destroy the Death Star. The music that was there was so integral to that. It's just hard to imagine watching that and having the same level of emotion about it.
Yes.
Without the music.
Yeah, I had done this masterclass a number of years ago where I was basically talking about film scoring with this group of college students that were composition students. And I actually took that like post-nuclear video that I'd done. It was like a 5-minute long video. And we were talking about, the conversation was film scoring. And I said, all right, we're going to start off with this. You're going to watch what it looks like as a composer getting the film for the very first time with nothing. Nothing.
Right.
We're going to sit here and we're going to watch the entire thing. And we watched all 5 minutes. It was the most awkward 5 minutes ever. Everyone's sitting there. It's just so like cricket, like, because you're seeing all this stuff happening on screen. There was no Foley.
No
nothing,
sound. Just
nothing.
Was there dialogue or anything?
Nope, there was no dialogue.
It was a silent film.
This particular film didn't have any talking, which was really
cool. Oh, okay.
It had no talking.
Oh, that's great.
Very cool. I mean, the whole film was just super sweet. So we get to the end, and so I just said, "What do you guys think?" And almost everyone in the room was like, "I don't even know what I would do." Like, basically, that's so awkward and so uncomfortable. It was like, how do you like, and so I was like, so where do you start? Like, what do you do? Like, how would you get going on this? And several of them were just like, I wouldn't even know where to start, because it's so jarring to watch something with no music.
Yeah. Right.
Especially something like that, where like there has to be music. Like the music is actually playing more than 50% of the effect because there's no dialogue.
Exactly. Yeah, Terry says it was actually a couple of years, or maybe 4 years before Star Wars came out. When Jaws came out, sure. Obviously the music, drives the narrative of, because when danger is happening based on the music itself. But I had not seen Jaws because Terry, you're just slightly older than I am, so you probably saw it before you saw Star Wars.
John Williams, man.
Not me. Yeah, John Williams. And Alien is much scarier with the music than without. plugging my ears while watching the film made me realize the importance of the soundtrack.
Well, and what's so interesting is the importance of silence too, because sometimes when you stop music and then it comes back in, that's when it's like, oh
It's
gosh,
powerful.
like man, it's like really hits you, like either like makes you want to cry, or like hits you in that exactly like what you're saying. We're just like, it's terrifying.
Yeah. Well, 2001: A Space Odyssey did that really well, where he just mixed in classical music, which you're very familiar with.
The blue Danube. The blue
Damage
oh
my gosh, it's so awesome. And then it's like complete silence, not even any Foley or anything. It's
oh, that makes me think of Gravity.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a great movie too. What can I say? Opinion. Wait a minute. What's your opinion on Baby Driver and its score?
Dude, yeah.
I haven't seen it, so I can't tell you.
I love it. They did, so there was like, what they did in that, it's just a ton of sync licensing, where basically they went and they used like pop tracks and pop tunes, and they were using a ton of music that was not like necessarily like original score stuff. But man, that movie, the way that they used music in that movie was bomb. I mean, from the very start, he's got his headphones in, he's walking down the street, and the music is like how they lined everything. It's incredible. It's if you should see it, Jay. It's a great movie.
I will.
Yeah,
I will.
That's good. Yeah.
I have not seen it, so I can't provide an opinion. But sounds good. Sounds good. Have you ever seen The Blues Brothers? Oh, I love that movie.
Mm-mm.
Oh man, it's all about music. So it's a comedy. It's John Belushi.
You seen La La Land?
Dan Aykroyd. I have not seen La La Land, and it's a film that all filmmakers should see.
That film, the music was so. I had such a mixed experience with it. It won it won Best Original Song, which I think was not deserving of, my personal opinion. I apologize for those of you guys that disagree. I don't think it deserved it. I was actually thoroughly disappointed with some of the original music in that movie. Like the songs themselves.
Right.
One, it's like you have basically non-professional singers singing it. Why didn't you just do what they did back in the day when they didn't have a professional singer, and just have someone who actually is a professional singer sing it, and then lip sync over it?
That's what they did.
It's like, that's been done and for a long time, and no one can tell. But so that's the first thing. But then the second thing is I'm trying to remember the name of the song that won the Academy Award for Best Original Song. But the song itself was actually quite bland, and it's just fascinating how sometimes people can react differently to different things. But like, that whole movie is about this jazz pianist, but none of the music is like real jazz, except for the scenes that they're in a jazz club, in which case it's actually a jazz band, a combo band, playing actual jazz. But like, none of the songs are like actual jazz.
Right.
It's like what I would call like pop jazz, like just enough jazz to kind of trick you.
But it's not real.
Which they have to do in order to get a large audience.
Well, there is that. Although I personally am a big fan of jazz.
I like
because
jazz.
My dad was a big fan of jazz, and so he had all the old jazz albums, and on a Sunday afternoon we would sit and listen to them together.
Yeah.
And so there's an emotional connection there. But I just love the sound of jazz. I think it's great. And we're talking old school jazz, Pi, have you ever seen Pi from 1998? I've never seen it.
No, I've heard about it a lot. In fact, I've got one of the directors that I've worked with. He was like, yeah, Pi is one of the big movies that he's inspired by. But I've never seen it.
Me neither. If you have any questions, last minute questions, because we're past the hour mark here. It's amazing how time flies when things are fresh. Fresh. Cross that off. Woo!
I'll use a today's term, like, that was lit, man.
That was lit. That was lit. All right, I'm out. I'm out of
well done.
Out.
Well done.
That was so lit. So being the key word on that. So
it's fresh. That's very fresh.
Remember, so fresh. He is so out of here. So
pretty dope.
Yeah, dope. That's so dope. For those of you who don't know, Nathan and I have known each other for over 20 years. And so I've been using, for those of you who came in late, I've been using terms from 20 years ago, slang terms all throughout the show. So that's where we're at on that. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, so here is the question. Now I've been running. I have over 30 of these shows under my belt now, and about like the second or third show, somebody posed a question in the chat room, which then all of my guests, I had several guests, answered, and then people in the chat rooms answered, and we started a tally, and it is like seriously even now. I mean, one was really ahead, and then it became even, right? And so, I mean, I don't want to say there's any pressure here, but you're almost like it's
Breaking
so
the tie.
even. You're ready to break the tie after 34 shows here. This and listen, I don't want to sway you in any way, shape, or form. Okay, on this. Okay, here is the question. Okay, this is it. Now I'm just putting some more water here in my yeah. Okay.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
This is the question. Pick one, but I don't want to sway you in any way at all. Okay? Yeah.
Yep.
All right. As long as we're clear, because we've known each other for a long time, and I don't want you to, I would hate to have to throw you out of my live stream.
Oh, okay. Well,
I'm kidding. Go ahead. Give me an honest answer here as to what your opinion would be.
Well, so talking about music here, what we need to do is have that moment where it's like, with my wife and I've been watching The Voice, which is a good show. And it's like, whenever they decide like who won like a particular duet or whatever, it's like the winner is, and then the music, boom. You've got that like super serious like drop, and then it's like the weight. Star Wars, no question.
Star Wars. Oh,
yeah, 100%. And Mandalorian, guys, Mandalorian. It's amazing.
Have you watched Mandalorian?
We totally watched all of it. Yeah.
So did we. It is so good. It is so good. Just love that show because
in the last the last Star Wars movie, the one that just came out last year.
Yep.
The one that somehow got terrible reviews.
The Rise of Skywalker. You're talking about?
Like that movie was awesome. Like
I like all Star Wars movies. Okay, I love all Star Wars movies. I love some of them more than I love others.
Yeah, okay. I'm with you there. I thought the last one, like we went with really low expectations, and it was like,
and you really enjoyed it.
Yeah, like both of us were, my wife and I were, because that was our first like movie date after having our son.
Yeah,
and it was
that's a special time, boy. Let me tell you.
But we went in thinking like probably not gonna like it, but we're at a movie.
So wait, did you leave your son with a babysitter or with a family member? Who did?
I think my mom. Oh no, my sister. My sister watched him.
Oh, your sister's a wonderful lady. So yeah, I could totally. I would trust her with my son too.
We're that couple that's just kind of like, oh, you want to watch your kid? Sure, why not?
Yeah, here you go. He's all yours. I was that way with my son. My wife, on the other hand, was a little more picky about it. She didn't want to leave him with me. I mean,
my wife and I were literally just talking about this last night. I've actually gone to the store grocery shopping with my son more than she has.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
I do that all the time because she's a stay-at-home mom, and so. Yeah, I'll do that.
That's
all the
fantastic.
Time. We're always like, hey, babe, you stay home, enjoy some coffee or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm taking the kid. We're going grocery shopping.
See, that's great. That's fantastic. Yeah. And my wife took 3 months off. She was a nurse. She took 3 months off, and then she had to go back to work, and so I took over watching, but she was like terrified, that something horrible was going to happen with with me in charge. And she had good reason, to be terrified,
And practicing karate on the baby.
It went fine. I mean, it was great, And my thing was, look, the kid has to learn how to navigate stairs, at some point. So it might as well be earlier rather than later,
Absolutely.
So he learned how to count as we walked up and down the stairs. We counted, so the kid could count to 12, as soon
That's
as
pretty
he
great.
could crawl, right? And so one day it was like, man, things are going great. We're walking up, we're going up and down the stairs, we're counting to 12, and then the dryer goes off because I'm also doing, laundry. And I'm like, oh, this would be perfect. I'll go grab the laundry and I will, we'll put it at the bottom of the stairs. We can go down and we can fold the socks together and stuff like that, which he really loved to do. So I run, I grab the laundry, man. I'm coming back out of the laundry and I hear this, dum, 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 dum. I'm like, oh, it was my son. He tumbled all the way down the stairs, right? And he hit the bottom, and was like, what the heck just happened? He was like, first I was up there and now I'm down here. And I thought,
he gets to the bottom and it's like, it's about to be like 12.
Yeah, 12. Yeah, 12. So then it was like, oh man, he's fine, So then we're messing around and we're folding socks. And then I look at him and he had hair, like this. And I peeled back the hair. There was this huge rug burn across his forehead.
Yeah.
I'm like, I am now going to die. My wife is going to kill me. And about that time, my phone rang because this was still at a time when every maybe hour when she was working at the hospital, she would call to check on him. And I was like, oh, yeah, he's fine. I mean, he's fine. Figuring I have several hours of life left. And then, she called again and again and again. And then she called for the last time. And I knew, this is going to be it, So then I had to fess it up before she got it. Because you can't say he was fine all day and then have her show up and see that he was not fine. So I finally, I said, he's okay, but we had a little accident on the stairs and he's fine, Man, she came running in the house. Let me see, where is he at? My poor baby. Oh, man. And he's
That's
like,
somebody.
who is this weird woman and what is she doing? It was, yeah, but he was fine, come on. Give us a little credit here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. I'm with it on that one.
No pain, no gain.
That's right. It's, hey, it's how you learn. And you know what? I will say the kid can, after that, he was whiz up and down those stairs, man. Never had a problem. Never.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
whew.
But Star Wars.
All right. Yeah. Here it is. We're getting close to an hour. So here it is. Also, 15-minute story later. Now you know me. Now you know me. You got me. Hey, Brad's Man's Gamer. What up, man? Good to have you. So, all right. Oh, here's one. Let's do one more question. Have you ever heard of Filmstro? So Filmstro is a you have to see it, but basically it's a plug and play, do it yourself kind of make your own music for your film, right? And what it does is you have several generic tracks, thousands, okay, of license free tracks. And then what you do is, you have bars, right, that you can move.
Oh, yeah.
And, more intensity now. Now I want less intensity, but I want faster pace, Oh, now I want at this part, I want more
I'm looking
percussion, or whatever. And it's sort of a make your own music thing. It really is.
My thought is, as a filmmaker, any of those tools, use it. Why not?
Yeah, if it
works,
I think there's, it's, to me, it's a great product. Because don't get me wrong, and I've used it, and I do use it because I am terrible at making music. So this is like, well, just make it more intense right here. I pick a song that I think matches basically my film, and then I use it. But if you really want something good, you need to have a real professional involved, right? It's sort of like training in martial arts,
I think it just it so depends. Like different licensing places have better quality. Like MusicBed is known for having a lot better quality. It's also more expensive,
right?
And then the thing you need to know is that, like, television, like there's a whole industry in television where they're using people like me. They're using my music and they're licensing it, it's not done by the original composer because it's faster for them, it's cheaper for them. And so if they need 20 seconds of a cinematic pop track, which is a lot of what I do, they could license my music, pay me however much money they're going to pay me based on that. And that's a heck of a lot cheaper than having their composer do it, who's going to charge, $1,000 a minute of music or $5,000 a minute of music, depending on what it is.
Right.
It's expensive.
Yeah, it can be.
I think the thing is that hiring a composer to do it, if you want really good quality, it's not cheap, unfortunately. But that's where if you have a friend who, like for me, like the guy who's the animator, he and I are good friends. We just have a barter system going. He's an animator. Like that's super valuable for someone like me who's making content and teaching. So I'm like, yo, I need a intro graphic, animated graphic. Yep, you got it. Like he'll just do it for me, whip it up for me. So we've kind of got that going where, I did it for him for free, which, normally I don't, but we just kind of had an agreement that, hey, you've got a skill set that I don't have. Let's just trade. And so we've done that. But
that's cool.
But yeah, I mean, like, honestly, a lot of those tools out there are really good. I think Artlist is another one. Artlist, MusicBed, Epidemic Sounds is good. There's a lot of good ones. And so it just depends. I mean, the one downside is you just end up scrolling, listening. That's really time consuming. So if you're doing like professional film work, you do have to weigh out like how much time did it take me to find licensed music versus how much time would it take for me to like hire a composer to do it or find a band or just a producer who will do it for me, depending on how long it is. It might make more sense to do that.
Sure. Well, it's sort of ways, if you're a low budget filmmaker, you're just making a short film just to make a short film, then, you're probably going to go with,
go with
tracks
licensing
that you find.
There's so much stuff out there. You can find whatever you need.
Sure.
It's just time consuming.
Yeah. So, you're weighing, there's the old, in filmmaking, there's a saying that, you have, cost, time, and quality, and you can have two of those, but not all three. Something is going to give for the other two, right? So you can have good quality and low cost, but it's going to take a lot of time, right? You can have low quality film, but it'll be cheap and it won't take any time, kind of a thing. So, but you're always going to give one of those three, something is going to give. You got to invest somehow, right? And this is no different, I think. So, well, it has just been a delight to have you on the show. I really appreciate you being here. It's good to talk to you again. It's been a long time since we've talked, quote unquote, face to face.
Yeah.
I mean, we know each other through social media and stuff, but it, is actually physically talking it's been just a pleasure. So I really appreciate you being here. And let me one more time. Let me just show your there's Nathan's music channel, right? And for anybody who's still watching, make sure that you let me just post that in there. I think I still have it. That looks like it. Yeah, that's it. I'm posting it one more time in the chat room. So definitely check his channel out. Subscribe to it. If you need anything done for you, Nathan's your guy for sure, right? You want to learn more about music? He does have a Facebook page that he runs too for musicians and things like that. So find him on Facebook and, get in touch with him there, right? Any last minute things you'd like to say, Nathan?
Man, it was awesome being here. Thanks for having me. And yeah, for all you guys, YouTube, a great place to kind of keep up with like more of the tutorial stuff. My website, nathanjlarsen.com. That's if you're actually really wanting to learn this stuff on a more serious level. That's where you can get more information about what that would look like. Perfect. All right. Thank you, sir. Really appreciate it. Yeah. And thanks to everybody who's watching. We'll catch you next time. Absolutely.